Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, my personal space on the internet where I get to share stuff that I'm passionate about, which is PC builds, hardware reviews, and gaming. In this video, I'd like to talk to you about my personal PC upgrade which I made late last year around October, the rationale behind the paths that I chose, why I did so. So after this intro, let's get right into it. So it had been 8 long years with my trusty Sandy Bridge platform, which I'm sure many of you out there are still on, and with good reason. The Sandy Bridge was going great and still is pretty capable for Full HD or 1080p 60fps gaming. The reason is Intel never came out with anything worthwhile and not at AMD. But last year, the entire trend changed in March when AMD launched their Ryzen, where they gave these additional cores for such a phenomenal price and totally upset the entire market. So at this point in March, I was waiting for things to settle down, and by October I had made the decision to go with the Ryzen platform, and I'll explain why. So my requirements were simple. In today's day and age, we folks want to do a lot of all-round processing in terms of having gaming, of course, which is a primary requirement for me, and secondly streaming, and thirdly some sort of video productivity to get my YouTube aspirations satisfied. So the answer was simple. I had to go with the Ryzen platform. And with that, let's just get into the parts right now. So for the processor, I went with the Ryzen 7 1700. Now this is an 8-core 16-thread processor. Now this is a great all-round processor with great value that comes in clocked at 3.0 GHz the base clock and 3.7 GHz as the boost. Now do note that the 3.7 GHz boost is based on the XFR or extended frequency range. And now this will basically boost your clock speed based on the temperature and thermals. So you may or may not get up to 3.7 GHz on 1, 2 or many cores. But fret not, this comes with an absolutely brilliant RGB cooler which is more than capable of providing the heat dissipation. It also looks good. So long story short, you will easily get 3.7 GHz out of the box on all cores using the box cooler, which again brings back to the great value this processor adds. The reason that I keep harping upon the great value is simply because it will give you more than enough power or juice for Full HD 1080p 60fps gaming, and it chews through productivity and multitasking like a hot knife through butter. Okay, so you must be wondering that hey, Intel gives way more FPS for gaming. Yes, it does, for about 10 to 12%. But the point is, the panels that most of us have out there are only 60 Hz refresh rate, which means even if your system is outputting greater than 60 FPS, the natural light simply does not experience that or register that. Yes, if your primary requirement is only gaming, and you are probably one of those esports professionals and have those high refresh rate panels, definitely Intel is the way to go, there is no doubt about it. But if you want an all-round processor, Ryzen is the way to go, guys. And at the time of recording in July 2018, Ryzen 2nd Gen is out. So if you have the budget, definitely do consider the Ryzen 2nd generation. But if you don't and you're looking for a great value, Ryzen 7 1700 still holds amazing value because it can be had at 21,500 rupees for an 8-core 16-thread processor, which is simply amazing. And also it gives you that a little bit of future proofing for games that come out, because already some of the latest games today are utilizing more and more cores. You are seeing at least 6 cores being utilized in Assassin's Creed Origins. So with that, now let's talk about the motherboard. For the motherboard, I decided to go with the Asus B350 Strix ROG board. Now there was a consideration whether I should go with the X370 or the B350. It was simple. The B350 gave similar overclocking performance to the X370, and all the X370 has over the B350 is probably a little superior VRM, which is not required because you get the same overclocking performance, and secondly more connectivity in terms of more SATA ports. So make sure that if you have enough connectivity through your B350, it simply makes more sense to go for the B350. So the decision was simple, and the other factors that I considered while buying this board was it's a fantastic looking board. Neutral looking color with this gunmetal color and beautiful RGB. Secondly, it comes with an Intel LAN chip which is superior to the Realtek, which the lower end boards have. Thirdly, it has great memory compatibility, which is important for Ryzen. I will talk about that later when we get into RAM. And lastly, it had one M.2 slot, which is great. And in hindsight, when I think about it, I think maybe, this is one con of the board. I would probably had expected or wish that it had one more M.2 slot. Otherwise, this is a great solid board. It's been functioning since late October, which is 8-9 months now. And I haven't had any issues with this board. I've even upgraded to the latest BIOS. It's rock solid stable. Oh, and lastly, it does have RGB as well. Nice subtle RGB. Again, the con on this one is when we install or you install the graphic card on the first slot, that light kind of gets covered. But don't worry guys, you can make sure that your cooler and your RAM sticks can make up for the bling bling. Alright, so with that we get into the RAM. Now, Ryzen first gen was very picky with the RAM, and please ensure when you are going for AMD based systems or the Ryzen based systems that you are looking at the QVL or the qualified vendor list posted on the websites for the motherboards that you have chosen. So the QVL is nothing but the RAM sticks that the motherboard manufacturers do the testing with. So I decided to go with the Corsair Vengance RGB 8x16GB kit CL15. This is rated at 3000 MHz, and out of the box I was able to overclock it, or not overclock it, run it at 2933 MHz using the inbuilt profile. Yes, I had to manually enter my timings because, like I said, the Ryzen first gen is a bit picky with the memory. It's a different story with Ryzen second gen. The controller is way more optimized and way more refined, so it's not as picky. You can easily get 3000 to 3200 on all boards. So do consider look at the RAM when you are purchasing or going with the Ryzen architecture, because the architecture is so that the faster memory does help the way for the Infinity Fabric, the way the cores talk to each other. So I would recommend at least 26 2666 MHz and above RAM if you are going with a Ryzen based system. With that, we get into the storage. For the storage, I went with the M.2 512GB drive from Western Digital, which again is a solid performer. There is no particular reason here. I just went for the cheapest option with the latest 2017 NAND controller. This drive was the cheapest, so I picked it up. Again, it's giving me fantastic performance. The advantage of the M.2 is that it eliminates the need for you to connect one additional wire, just keeping it clean. And like I said, the performance is fantastic. It loads into Windows in less than 10 seconds. I think close to about 7 seconds to be precise. Okay, and second part of storage now for media and other large files. I went with a 2TB Seagate Barracuda drive, 7200 RPM from Amazon. So with hard drives, there's not much to choose. Just make sure that you are getting 7200 RPM, because you could be also getting 5400 RPM drives, which are of course slower than the 7200 counterparts. And just ensure that you get at least a minimum of 2-year warranty on these drives. You can go with Western Digital or with Seagate. You can't go wrong there. Okay, and now onto the graphic card. So during the time of this upgrade, or when I made these purchases, which was October 2017, the graphic card prices were insane due to the mining craze. They're of course subsiding now. So I decided at that point not to make an upgrade and hold off either so that the prices become a little sane. Also hoping that Nvidia would launch their new series this year. So I moved or ported my EVGA 970 Superclocked edition from my Ryzen based system, which is again more than happy for 1080p 60 FPS. It still satisfies on most titles or all titles today. At the moment I'm just spending my time on PUBG most of the time. So it is satisfying my needs for now. Maybe later on and later in the year I'd probably upgrade to something else from one of the newer generation cards. Now to the cabinet. So of course when I was imagining my build or picking the parts, I wanted the build to look good, to have RGB, and tempered glass is again rage with 2017 and 2018. So I had to go for this S340 Elite. It's an amazing looking cabinet. I went for the white. I think it looks really sexy. Again, looks are subjective, so you can look at other cabinets, but this comes with a tempered glass. It looks really amazing. The other aspect is it's just not beauty, it's beauty with brains. So it's extremely functional. It's very good or very easy with the cable management. It gives you the shrouds and the covers in the right places to make your build look nice and neat. A key tip over here is when you are building or at least choosing a case, make sure you get one with the PSU shroud, because that's where the one that has a shroud can cover the power supply and all the wires, and it just makes the build look a lot neater. So again, amazing case. It comes with two 120mm fans in it. You can load up to 4 2.5-inch drives and 3 3.5-inch drives. You can also mount two 40mm rads either in the front or on top. It comes with two USB 3.0 ports and an HDMI up front, so it's good for folks that want to indulge in VR. And lastly, it comes with this amazing magnetic puck, which you can probably use to hold your headphones or some sort of as a tool for keeping the wires neat. Okay, and now to the last component, which is the PSU or the power supply unit. This again I have ported from my previous system, which is the Seasonic S12 620 watt power supply, bronze rated. Now Seasonic makes some great power supplies, and Seasonic 620 watt is an amazing power supply, pretty steady. They're a bit hard to come by these days. Stocks I've seen are limited, not sure why, but this has been a solid power supply providing system to my Sandy Bridge and now to this Ryzen based system, and it's quite noiseless. I mean, there's very less noise from the fan. It runs cool. So that's it, guys. I mean, this is the build that I went with. I'm extremely happy with it. It's doing very well in terms of gaming. This will be the first video that I'll be using for productivity. So I did try some of the samples and it simply chews through the video editing. So I'm sure it'll do well there as well. If you have any questions, dude, let me know in the comment section. And of course, I'd like you guys to help me with naming this beautiful PC. I hope you enjoyed it. Do share your comments in terms of suggestions. And look out for my follow-up video where I will be benchmarking this, because I'm sure you guys will be eager to know how it performs and give you some numbers, which I'll do in a follow-up. Alright guys, I think I've rambled on enough. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this similar content, please do subscribe to the channel, like the video, and also share it with your friends. Thanks guys, cheers, bye-bye.